Aloha, I'm Representative Kymberly Pine, and thank you for joining us with Time with Kymberly Pine. Today we have a very important show for you today. We're going to discuss the economy and jobs in the state of Hawaii, and I couldn't think of any other two people to come today to talk to us about that other than Jim Tollefson from the Chamber of Commerce of Hawaii. You're the CEO and president, and of course Melissa Teves Pavlicek of NFIB, you're the Hawaii State Director. Now let's just get down straight to it. What are some of the concerns that you are hearing in the business community about our economy?
Jim, let me just jump right in because I know,
Jump right in.
Jim and I were chatting the other day about unemployment insurance, but I think it sort of ties into a bigger theme for our National Federation of Independent Business Owners, and that is the cost of doing business. And we are working really hard to try and generate revenues, but it's really tough when we have uncertainty and increased costs. And right at a time when the economy is still struggling, to have increased unemployment insurance costs is really a big challenge. And there are several others, and I know we're going to probably talk about them more.
But that really, the unemployment insurance issue is our number one issue this year at the Chamber of Commerce of Hawaii. You know, it's a couple years ago we got some legislation passed that took a major burden off of the businesses, especially the small businesses, but all businesses in Hawaii. In fact, it took about a $400 burden off of their back, just at a time when we thought we were coming out of the Great Recession. Well, we're still coming out of the Great Recession. I don't think anyone could foresee the length and the breadth of this economic challenge that we've had. And so we're very strongly supporting coming back for additional legislation to, again, give a breather to the businesses who are just now climbing out of this long period of downturn. And I'd like to echo another comment that Melissa made, and there's just a lot of uncertainty out there, and now's not the time to add to that.
I think one of the ways we complement each other is I was really encouraged to see Jim speaking about the unemployment insurance rate. But one of the unique features about NFIB is we never take a position at the legislature without balloting our members and having a supermajority. So at least 70% have to have the same opinion before we take a position at the Capitol. We have about 1,000 members in Hawaii. And so this year we asked them, and we didn't ask Jim before we did the question, but it seems like we did, should maximum unemployment benefits be reduced if the unemployment trust fund nears bankruptcy? And this issue stemmed from NFIB's experience in other states. So taking a look at the rate and the benefits paid out, you know, this is what really depletes the fund. And so I think together we can have some, hopefully, proactive solutions.
What would happen if there's members like myself who are trying to fast track that legislation. What is the rate increase that would incur on your members if we do not pass that this year?
We've seen various numbers depending on who you talk with, but the number that we believe is the closest to the accurate number, and again it's an average, is about $550 per employee per year.
Of the increase?
Of an increase. Of an increase.
So that would include like your mom and pop pet store in Eva Beach that we have.
That's correct. And so if you have 2 employees, that's $1,100 a year. If you have
200 employees, yeah.
200 employees, just do the math. So it really will be a downward push on businesses again, just at the time when they're really trying to come out of the doldrums we've been in.
One of the things that struck me, I remember sitting with Jim at a House Finance Committee hearing when the first unemployment insurance rate relief passed. And many legislators questioned and seemed to not believe that these increased costs would actually hinder jobs or would affect how many people employers could hire. And it seems so basic, but if we have to face $500 per employee costs at a certain number of employees, you can't hire that next person. You can't hire a part-time person. I mean, it really adds up, and it does affect the bottom line.
And it can have an even more detrimental impact because those companies that are still hanging on by the tips of their fingers, it may be just enough for them to decide, well, we're going to shut our doors And not only do you not grow the employment base, you actually add to the unemployment base. So it's a major concern of ours, and we really are going to be asking the legislature to fast track this, to move this along quickly, as we did the last time. We are appreciative of what was done a couple of years ago, and we really do want to see it happen again.
Jim, you are so much more positive, because I kind of went kicking and screaming with that rate relief, because I even wanted it to go farther.
Yeah, no.
But we're of course grateful for any relief, but it's that jump back up that really kind of hurts you. And I think what legislators often want to hear and see is not just the Chamber of Commerce or NFIB as a group, but they really want to see the actual business person. And for myself, I'm the classic NFIB member. I have 7 employees, less than $1 million in revenue. I mean, we have 1,000 members in Hawaii, and the vast majority have fewer than 10 employees. So we're, just like you said, mom and pops. And the Chamber has many members who are small.
In fact, I'm sure we have a lot of crossover, but we have a large number of our members are small. Small, again, 5, 10, or less employees. Over 80% of our members are really what we classify as small business, which are 50 or less employees. We don't use the SBA category because we did.
Everybody in
Hawaii would be a small business, and in reality, everybody in Hawaii is a small business, or they work together with small businesses. So even the larger businesses in town rely very heavily upon the small business community. So that's why this is, again, our number one priority.
I think one of the other challenges is that sometimes issues, and this really isn't one of them, but often employment-related issues try to split us apart. You know, they'll say, well, we'll let out the small employers, but we're just going to put this bad piece of costly legislation on you big employers. And like Jim was saying, the majority of your members are small employers, but we know that what affects business affects us all, and it affects the economy, it affects jobs. It's the reason why we're here talking. So you can't just put a bill on and say, well, anyone who has fewer than 100 employees, it doesn't impact, and expect it to have a good effect.
No.
Now, have you heard, I know you've been lobbying, have you had any concerns expressed by people in the legislature that are against this idea, and what are their concerns?
Well, I think one of the concerns is that we do need to build up the reserve in the fund. Now, frankly, we're in much better shape than most states. But that we're still here and they're there. But the responsibility for building up the fund really rests upon the shoulders of the business community, the businesses. This is not state government. This is not coming out of the general. I mean, there's some misconceptions out there, frankly, because some people think, well, you know, it's going to be more higher taxes and that sort of. It's coming right out of the pockets of the businesses, because we're the ones that have fund the fund. So the concerns that have been expressed by some people that it's going to have an impact beyond that, you know, is not really correct. The real funding of the fund comes from the business community. We're just asking for more time, to give more time for businesses to complete their improvement process, so that that when we do start paying a higher rate, or as the unemployment rate comes down, we won't have to pay a higher rate. We can actually fill up the fund faster.
Just to explain it for our viewers, I know this is a little confusing, but basically what's being debated right now is our unemployment insurance fund is dwindling because we are using so much of it, because so many people are unemployed. And so there is a debate among some legislators that we need to ask more from the businesses who pay into the fund to replenish that fund. But what the businesses are arguing is, if you ask us to pay more, we're actually, as Jim said earlier, going to have to lay off people, and then you will have more people depleting the fund even more because they're unemployed and using the fund. So to make it simple, if you have more people working and businesses are surviving, they will have a better ability to pay into the fund in the long run. And did I get that right to simplify
put.
that? Okay.
Well put. I was going to say, we're going to have you come and testify.
This is a new thing for some of our viewers, and there is that mentality, get the businesses will pay, the 1%ers, and people don't realize that these are our aunties and our uncles, and they don't make a lot of money. Maybe their businesses as a whole make a lot of money, but they actually are paying that out for salaries so that people can feed their families. And so let's go on to something else. Is there any other issues that are at the top of your mind that we can help you with this year?
You jumped in the last time. Let me jump in this time. You know, there are some. We're concerned that there'll be additional legislation introduced, as it has been year after year after year, that is involved with the workplace. Additional cost that will be brought into the business community related to the other human resource type issues, and we all want to take care of our employees, but year after year the cost of doing business goes up in Hawaii because we have passed more and more, I'll use the term onerous, legislation that adds to the cost of doing business. We were concerned about the impact of the sick leave bill that was passed last year. We'd like to see if there's some things we can do to alleviate that. At one time it was thought it was only going to impact a handful or less of large companies. Now it may impact many, many more companies. And some of the numbers I'm hearing from some of our members is that this will have, again, a real dampening impact on the ability of these companies to add jobs in the future, because it just has become
These are the
much
larger
more
companies that have the capital to reinvest and expand, but they maybe have that hesitation of the larger impact on their company and its success.
I think the sick leave bill is a good example of something that it sounded good, and it's very hard not to support the intent. Of course, employers want to honor the employee's ability to use sick leave if they're really sick. But when you start limiting the times when the employer can require a doctor's note to only 3 consecutive days, or you can't discipline an employee who consistently calls in sick on a particular day, or have a retail sale, for example, on a night where you need all the hands on deck, it gets very challenging to operate your business, and especially for the very small businesses who only have 3, 4, 5 employees. One person's absence can really make a difference. Now, the law as it stands only applies to employers with 100 or more employees, and there's this odd provision about whether or not it applies to the union employees. But there are a group of large employers suing over that law, and I've heard discussion that maybe we can kind of resolve the lawsuit by making this law apply to all the businesses. And it's like, oh no, that's going backwards. So
and so just to clarify too, is what was happening in a case that was submitted to us as testimony as a particular
that an employee wasn't allowed to take their sick leave when they were really sick. And I think I didn't mean to stomp on what you were going to say, but I just feel for that. Of course, we care about that.
But what was happening is someone would consistently call in sick on a Friday, and it was very clear that they were abusing the sick leave, but the employer couldn't do anything to discipline that action. And so definitely we're going to continue to further discussion. There is that fine line of because of course every employer in the state of Hawaii does, for the most part, give sick leave. It is a privilege that we have in the state of Hawaii.
You know, that bill really does try to prevent abuse of sick leave. So I don't want to be misleading and say that it makes abuse of sick leave okay. It doesn't. It's only legitimate use. But it's really the nuts and bolts of how you do things. And I'll give you another example. We absolutely support the intent of protecting domestic violence victims. But we have a new law now that protects domestic violence victims in the workplace. And it's really challenging to try to address the reasonable accommodations when a person's position is in the public, and if they are a domestic violence victim and we need to protect them, if they're a cashier or a hostess or some kind of public position, it is a challenge for employers. So for the proponents of those bills, if they can work with us and help us get clarity on exactly what the employer is supposed to do in a reasonable and realistic way, I think it'd be very helpful.
Okay.
Fundamentally, I look at this as the role is the role of the state legislature to continue to regulate, or is it to find ways to support the business community? You know, we would like to see regulation is not all bad, and I'm not going to say it is, but we tend to take things step by step by step, and at each step we take, it just adds to the cost of doing business, which dampens, in some cases suppresses, the businesses here ability to add positions, to create more employment for the people. So it's almost like it would be great, I think, if we take a look at the economic impact of some of the legislation that is passed before it's passed. Personal opinion.
That's like what they call fiscal notes, and that's one thing that our caucus is promoting, and we're going to be implementing it even on ourselves. We're no longer going to introduce legislation that does not include what we think the cost would be, and so we'll be talking about that a lot. Of course, there's been a lot of pushback from that idea, but we're going to continue to push away anyway.
That sounds really good. I was going to say that one way I try to get my arms around what the impact is many of the NFIB businesses are staffing companies, and they're small businesses themselves, and they put employees out into other small businesses, and they feel the ripples in the economy first. And what I hear from them is they're all very busy, and that's a bright sign, but they're busy with temp employees, and that the employers are preferring to opt for a temporary rather than getting a full-time in-house permanent person. So I think there are these little bright spots, but if we aren't really transitioning into true job growth, that we're still going to have some real challenges.
Do you think the employers are switching to temps just to relieve themselves of certain liabilities or to test an employee out, or they're not sure if they can keep that employee for a long period of time?
I think it's that you're not sure if you can keep the employee, because truly you do have the same obligations and liabilities in terms of discrimination and those types of laws. So it doesn't totally relieve the employer of those obligations. It does take some of the administration off of them and the long-term commitment. And I mean, truly employees today, just like employers, realize that there is no lifetime job anymore. It's really challenging. I had a student intern say that she was making her decision on where to get accept a job based on which one would be, more stable. And I wondered, how do you know? But I really think that if we can look at proposals, I think that our conversation today is making it sound like we are just saying no to everything, and that's what we're often accused of at the legislature.
You just want it tweaked a little bit.
But I mean, I think legislators often ask us to come from the business community with some proactive solutions. And it's really challenging when we want a level playing field and really to minimize the impact of costly regulations. So we did have a good victory. My predecessor, Betty Tatum, the executive director for NFIB for many years, had as her number one to eliminate the requirement for limited liability owners like myself to buy workers' compensation on the insurance for themselves.
And that was a very big victory.
That was a big
She's been trying to do that, and you folks have been trying to do that
for years.
Yeah.
So it's great, and I know when I renewed my workers' compensation insurance for my company this year, I reaped the benefit of those savings myself. So
no, there's some. Melissa's making a good point. It's not all negative. We tend to sometimes focus on the negative, but I guess we need to work together on it and have better understanding from both the business sector and the legislative sector to understand each of the challenges we face. You folks have a very difficult job, and it doesn't get any easier year after year. I guess what we're trying to say is if we improve the business climate, there'll be more taxes paid, there'll be more people working, and it will help the budgetary challenges faced in the state as we go forward.
Any other particular issues that you folks are focusing on this year?
Well, there'll be more.
One thing that NFIB is really trying to do is reach out to some of the younger entrepreneurs and business owners, and we're working with some students at the University of Hawaii. We have some new leadership council members, and we're really excited. And I know the Chamber has a similar program, and so we're really trying to get that energy going and to bring some new faces up here to the Capitol and see the real world of what the business community is facing.
Well, we're doing the same, and in fact, later this week we will have our annual walk around, which we will be bringing both young and old to walk around and meet with you all as we walk through. You know, Melissa brings up another great point. We do have a young professionals program, but we also put on training for our businesses. Legislative 101 training, which we really try to help the businesses understand how the process works. I think there's lack of understanding in the business community how legislation actually takes place, and the more informed the businesses are, the more effective we can be in helping you and others craft legislation that will help the benefit the community as a whole.
We're going to join you for the walk around, and thank you for inviting dozens of other business organizations too. It'll be a great showing with all of us up here at the same time.
That's right. Yeah, it's not just the Chamber of Commerce of Hawaii. We invite what we call the Alliance of Businesses in to walk around. And again, a lot of it just comes back to communication, understanding what the challenges are from both perspectives.
Now, what are some of the threats nationally that you folks see coming our way or have already come our way in terms of legislation that has been passed that you see as hurting our business here in Hawaii?
Well, you know, NFIB has been very involved in challenging the federal health care reform. And here in Hawaii, we have not really participated in NFIB's effort because we have the Prepaid Healthcare Act. But it's definitely something that businesses have asked me about a lot. How are those two laws going to coexist? What does it mean? What changes do we need to make, and most importantly, is it going to cost more? And I haven't found anyone yet who said it's going to cost any less. So I know federal healthcare reform is one area. We also in Hawaii had our first taste of the card check unionization bill. That was often discussed as a #1 NFIB issue up at Congress. We haven't seen it implemented here yet, but just like the sick leave bill, it's something that we're watching and wondering, will it be applied to smaller businesses? Very small businesses actually do, interestingly enough, fall in the Hawaii law because it only applies to Hawaii Labor Relations Act companies. So that is thought primarily to deal with agriculture of a certain size, but very small companies do fall within there too. So.
Now, the APEC conference did open a lot of opportunities for local businesses. As it was revealed in many different parts of the conference that there's opportunity to sell Hawaii in places like China and other places, our Hawaii products. Do you have members that have benefited by that new promotion, or
you know, actually it's given us the idea just for within the NFIB family to have our state directors host webinars and conferences so that, for example, my Alaska counterpart has been asking, how can we sell some Hawaii products up here in Alaska? So it's inspired a lot of innovation, and I'm really excited about it.
I think APEC was a game changer for Hawaii, for Hawaii and for the business community in Hawaii. And we were involved with a business innovation showcase the Chamber was, where we went out to the neighbor islands and came up with neighbor island winners, as well as here in Oahu, and a statewide winner. Companies that were cutting edge, leading edge companies that are doing business here now. And they have already, I know one specific instance where one of our winners, as well as a Chamber member, as an MOU with a Chinese company. So I think it's early. We were planting the seeds during APEC, and I think the benefits will pay off in the long run. I think the other real advantage, and I have to speak, give full disclosure, I was on the host committee, but I think
no
it really
bias.
but I think it really brought a sense of pride to the state. I mean, we were able to do something that has only been done once in the United States before, and that was in '93, and that was the first one in Seattle. And we did it very, very well, extremely well, and it was because we had over 1,000 volunteers. I mean, this was not just a business endeavor. This was an endeavor that included so many people, and so many people chipped in and it was a real, I believe, a win-win.
I
And
guess
think
you won't
we'll
let
pay
me
the benefits.
complain about my little traffic moment.
No,
That's small
that
in
was
the
in the
big scheme.
past.
Okay.
I think we'll see real benefits in the future for
Yeah.
the,
We
for the state.
have about 3 minutes left. Is there any other closing remarks that you wanted to add to our discussion today?
Well, from the chamber perspective, we're looking forward to working together with the legislature and the administration to find ways to alleviate some of these uncertainties out there and find ways to generate more jobs. Again, we may come across as we can't do this, we can't do that, but there are ways. I mean, pointed out in the LLC.
Small victories are good.
Small victories are good, and we look forward to working with the legislature and with Melissa and her folks and the other business organizations in the town to really help inform the legislators and the business public, or the public, what the issues really are.
Melissa?
For me, NFIB members are very passionate advocates, and we don't often come to the Capitol, but when we do, we really have some strong opinions. So I hope you'll bear with us. We really want to see what's good for the state, what's good for the economy, and we really look forward to a great year.
Well, we have a lot of great things that we hope will happen with the business community. The one bright side for you folks is that I can tell you from talking with my colleagues, they get it. We need to do something to improve the economy, and taxing our way out of it and charging more fees has not been working. We've been trying that for many years, and we're still not out of the Great Recession. We are doing a little better, but we want to do a better job working with you. So I thank you folks so much for coming today
Thank you
and
for the opportunity.
educating us. I hope that you will
Informing,
stay
not
around. And I want to thank all of our viewers out there for joining us either on the web or through Olelo. We thank you so much for continuing to tune in to our discussion. We know that we can't govern without you, and we know it's certainly hard to run a business, and I can tell for myself that I continue to advocate, especially for those businesses that are funding all of our households through employing people here in the state of Hawaii, and we know that they are a very large part of our economy, and we want to do everything that we can to help them to succeed. Thank you again for joining us for Time with Kymberly Pine. I am Representative Kymberly Pine, and I look forward to next month's show with all of you. Mahalo and aloha.